very warm welcome, Steve. And for all those who will be viewing this video, we have Steve with us from People and Wildlife Ghana, a non-profit which is actively working for the ecosystem for the entire human, animal, and wildlife ecosystem. And we will definitely hear it out from Steve himself about himself and the non-profit. So, a very warm welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
So, Steve, can you throw some more light on your journey, and what does your nonprofit do, and how does it try to create an impact in the society?
Okay, my journey began with taking an interest in conservation in Ghana, which is in West Africa. And a couple of years back, I started doing some work around the nature reserve called the Kalakwa Nature Reserve in Ghana. And then I met up with another gentleman in the UK where I live called Julian Branscombe. He's also been involved in supporting wildlife conservation in Ghana. So we teamed together and thought about forming this non-profit, because what we realized was that some of the communities we worked with and small NGOs we worked with in Ghana didn't get a lot of support. And so we wanted to find a way of reaching out to the international community to get support for these small conservation, community-based conservation organizations. It will interest you to know that about 80% of global biodiversity is in areas, lands that are controlled by indigenous communities. 80% of global biodiversity. So if these small community groups that are working in these areas need help, I think it's good that we try to find help for them. They are not big and well-connected NGOs. They are probably small people in small community groups trying to do things. So we realized this gap. So we formed this NGO, this charity in the UK that has been supporting community conservation in Ghana.
Wow, I think that's a great initiative, Steve. And that's a very, very amazing insight that you just shared with us, that 80% of the biodiversity is actually controlled in the areas which are by the indigenous people. And that is something very, very exciting to know, actually. And so I would like to understand that how does your nonprofit assist those indigenous societies and communities in those areas for preserving that wildlife and biodiversity?
Yeah, it's mainly providing a platform for reaching out to organizations in the West who give funds, because usually people will not give donations to overseas entities if they are not sure there is proper regulation of where their donations are going. So by forming People and Wildlife Ghana in the UK, that is recognized by the UK Charity Commission, when people give money, they know that People and Wildlife Ghana is going to ensure that due diligence is in place to make funds are used properly. So having this organization here in the UK really helps global cause in places far away from the UK.
Understood. That's a very great cause. And so how long has People and Wildlife Ghana been working in this area?
It's about 2 years. We've been in operation for about 2 years.
That's really great. And so I would like to understand from a more general point of view, like as a non-profit, as an advocate for the earth-friendly activities and causes. I would like to ask you that what, according to you, what do you think can be one eco-friendly or earth-friendly resolution that every single person can take at their own level that will actually help preserve our ecosystem and the earth?
I think what I would say is that the most important thing is that people realize that we are in a crisis. for a lot of people, it's just business as usual. They'll go about their normal activities. But this earth is our home. We have nowhere else to go. And if you realize your home was in danger, you'd try and do something to protect it. And currently we have two big crises, which is the climate change crisis, as well as the crisis of the loss of species. It is predicted that the planet could lose 1 million species, and it's that bad. And with climate change, if that's not taken care of, then we'll have more floods, more extreme weather. It is said that about 150,000 people die a year because of the effects of climate. So people must realize that we are in a bad situation on this planet, and what everyone can do differs, but just realizing that we are in bad times is the first step. And of course, since I work with community-based conservation among indigenous people, I say, of course, this is a cause you might want to, these are causes you might want to support, because these people offer very good value for money. They don't have big offices, drive big cars. They are just ordinary people in usually poor communities doing little things to help our planet, and we need to drive it to direct some effort to supporting such.
Absolutely agree on that point, Steve, because I think realization is the first step that actually induces the action towards any cause or anything that we support.
Yeah.
Steve, I think your video got stuck. I think I can. Yes, now I can see. Great. All right. Yeah. So I think I totally agree with you on that. And talking of crisis, I think currently there is a lot of chaos that is going out in the world. First, we saw the deadly pandemic that affected the entire world in some or the other way, every single person. And currently, we are witnessing a war that involves a lot of countries, a lot of nations, but primarily Ukraine and Russia. So, although I would say that these kind of chaos and these kind of situations have been comparatively temporary, but the crisis in terms of environment and crisis in terms of the wildlife preservation and everything, like you said, that preserving the species and endangered species, that is something that is moving slowly but is a long-term thing, and that in a way gets sidelined in front of these temporary chaos, right? So I would like to understand from you that what approach should we take? What do you think that what is bringing these long-term crises in terms of earth preservation and biodiversity preservation on the backside, and how can we put it on the front?
Well, from what I've seen, especially where we work in Ghana or in Africa, there's not a lot there's some interest around, but there's not a very considerable interest across the board in conservation. People know that you can go to the farm, you can cut wood, burn charcoal. There is the increased awareness, but it's not so widespread. So I think there needs to be more, I'll say, greater support for community groups, which involve sensitizing people and as well, because the awareness is not really there. And one interesting thing is that in many countries, you have government, environmental agencies, and so on, who are supposed to take care of basically protected areas and so on. But if the ordinary citizens don't take an interest, in some countries there's a lot of corruption and so on, there's illegal logging and so on. So if ordinary citizens don't show interest, the government officials who are supposed to do their job don't do it. So I think at the grassroots level, there must be a lot of support and sensitization of people who then, when they see people carrying out illegal things like illegal mining in the communities, they are made aware that this could destroy your water bodies and so on. And in turn, the rural communities will get up and sort of hold governments to account. So a lot must needs to be done at the grassroots levels, because even though governments have budgets and so on to handle the environment, if the ordinary people don't keep an eye on what's going on and raise a flag when things are not going right, things just get covered up or ignored, and problems.
So Steve, what you're saying is that we should focus more on the micro actions rather than relying more on the macro actions from the government point of view, because like I said, that the governments are more inclined towards paying attention on the temporary crisis situations that are going on in terms of diplomacy or international relations or those kind of things. So what I can get out of your answer is that we should take more micro actions on a grassroots level rather than relying upon the government on a broad level of recorrections and schemes, right?
I think so. Generally, governments know they need to do things to help the environment, but they have, especially in third world countries, developing countries, they have all sorts of problems. There's not enough money and sometimes not enough skill, but it's usually not enough resources. And if people don't hold the government to account, a lot of things don't get done. Even in developed countries, if people don't keep an eye out for what some companies do and their impact on the environment, some companies get away with doing things that are not quite right. So people need to be sensitized and supported to hold the big boys to account.
Understood. I think that totally makes sense. Also, since we have connected today for this campaign on Earth Day, and so one of the most basic questions that I usually ask my guests, and absolutely unusual answers I get every time I ask this question, and it depends upon the perspective and the point of view from where non-profits and our speakers are working from. So I'd ask the same question to you as well. What do you think? Why do we celebrate Earth Day? And what basically is the significance and importance of Earth Day from your non-profit's point of view, or from your point of view?
Well, Earth Day is important to us because we see the need for everyone to know that we need to take care of our planet. There's a lot we take for granted. We take for granted that we have free air to breathe, for example. But if we don't take good care of that, soon it's not going to be there. We go out to enjoy the environment, the trees, going to parks, and so on, and that adds to our quality of life. Don't take care of these things, our quality of life is going to go down. So it is in everybody's interest for us to try to care more about our planet. As I said, it is our home. We have to take care of it.
I think that's a great message, and that's a great way to look at Earth Day. And yes, like I said, that I hear completely different perspectives from different people, and thank you so much for that. Also, I'd like to discuss here a different aspect of a non-profit organization. So whenever I connect with any non-profit organization, all of them have unanimously agreed upon one thing, that when we talk about the biggest stakeholder in a non-profit organization, it has to be the volunteers. The volunteers who come up with the right intent at their heart to support the cause. I think that's the biggest fuel to a non-profit. Why? Because a person himself or a CEO or a beneficiary of a non-profit organization cannot take the initiative or the cause to another level. They need some support, some social support. So I would like to understand from you as well, that what can be and what are the different ways that a person can come up and support your non-profit organization as a volunteer.
Yes. In fact, there are lots of ways. Obviously, our primary focus is raising funds from the developed world, usually to support small community-based conservation groups in Africa. So fundraising is one of the important things people can do on a volunteer basis. And things like crowdfunding. I know somebody who will just ride a bike because she enjoyed cycling, and with that, she was able to raise funds for good causes. So if you have a cause that you are keen on supporting, a little money here in the developed world goes a long way in developing countries. So that's one of the primary ways people can help. And you can raise funds doing things you enjoy doing. As I said, I use somebody who cycles as an example. I remember once we raised funds within a company I worked for by organizing a music night. We formed a band. The band was really bad. But people were so happy to see members of their company playing in a band. So we raised about over £1,000 out of that. So you don't need to be doing anything so serious to raise funds. Just the usual things you like doing. You'll be surprised that you get people to join you, people who like also supporting, or just sometimes people just want to have fun and will take part in an activity to raise. Yeah, but I can't run the marathon. You see, people enjoy running through the marathon, and they use that to raise funds. So you can use something that you enjoy doing. But that's just one way of volunteering. We have projects as well that we do and we support. So I've put a few volunteer opportunities out there so people can engage with some of the volunteering activities. And when you engage in volunteering activities, you find out that you might be able to pull people within your immediate network into what you're doing. For example, we have one volunteer. We needed somebody to design some paintings for us. And she said, oh, my sister can do that. So when you reach out to people, then your network increases as well. You can get some very skilled and experienced people, especially people who work in technology or different fields, who can bring their experience to help. And there's so much opportunity, even though we are into conservation. We're looking at things like sustainable housing, farming, even engineering. There's so much you can use your skills for. People are interested in giving back as well. So again, reaching out to these people, you might find something within your niche that you can contribute. Conservation is very broad because it affects social, and there's a social aspect to what you're doing. There's an economic aspect, there's technology aspects as well. Like when people are hiding in the bush poaching, you need to have monitoring systems to be able to monitor these things, some of these activities. So there's just so much, and it's interesting as well. Yeah, I could go talking forever.
I
Sorry.
love that. I actually love that. Thank you so much for sharing all those ways to volunteer. And I think you have got a great set of volunteers who can actually put up a band and put up a show for the community. I think that's really amazing to hear, actually. And so, yes, Steve, I think those were all my questions. Would you like to share any other information from your end that I might have missed through my questions?
I think all I'll say is that we'll just need to find ways to, one of the challenges is finding ways to reach out more for more support. This is because, as I said, indigenous communities take care of about 80% of global biodiversity in areas that are under their influence, but there aren't very good channels for getting funding towards them. So I'll just ask volunteers and people who want to donate to some of these causes to search out for such organizations that work in indigenous communities. And because there's some very well connected large development NGOs, I always use the phrase that they go in with big, powerful Toyota Land Cruisers that's costing thousands to do development, where there's so much overheads in the work they do. But if you're able to target your support for smaller organizations who don't even have people on salary, but people are willingly going out and doing stuff, I think it's good value for money. And what we've done with People and Wildlife Ghana is that we try to make sure that when people give money, then we have good oversight of it. It doesn't just go into a black hole, but then it's well accounted.
Amazing. I think thanks a lot for sharing that. And from this discussion, all I know that is your nonprofit is doing a tremendous job, and congratulations to you and Julian on this. And please send my best wishes to Julian. And yes, we missed him in the call, and it would have been really great to hear his opinion as well on all the questions that we had shared. And so, yes, I think that would conclude our discussion. And one thing before saying a final goodbye, I think we do this with all the nonprofits, and what we do is that end of this conversation of any interview, we click a quick screenshot of the conversation. And the catch here is that we have to do a gesture that represents your cause or your nonprofit. So it can be anything, the most silliest thing to most wisest, and we both get that, something that we both can do, and click a quick screenshot.
Okay, now I need to think about this. Maybe I'll just do something like a shelter or something. Yeah.
That's great. I think it would be better if your face is visible.
Okay, so I'll go. Is that? It's hard to get the camera. Is that okay?
This was a really amazing discussion, and every time I discuss and I have such interview calls with speakers like you and nonprofit representatives like you, I think there is a lot to learn for me personally as well. And I would love to hear from Priya as well, since she joined us in this call. I would love to hear from her as well, that what does she think about this interview discussion, and how did she feel? Priya?
It was my first experience, and to be honest, it was a very lovely one. And especially he spoke about the citizens and their micro actions, which can affect us on a very large dimension. I think that was the most striking point of the interview, because we as an individual can take those initiatives despite of the region where we belong. So I think that's the most special message of the interview.